Welcome to the Explicit Mathematics program webinar. I'm Ollie Lovell. I'm joined here with Toni Hatten-Roberts, one of the other co-founders of the EMP. We've also got Verity Lavery here, who's our general manager. And we've also got Liam Ryan from St Anthony's, and we'll be hearing from Liam a little bit later. It's wonderful to have you all here, and hopefully this is going to be a really fantastic discussion for us all today. We want to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land. I'm presenting from the lands of the Boonwurrung people today. We'd like to pay respect to elders past and present and extend that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people who may be here today. And also pay respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people from whose lands we're all joining from today. We've also just had Lisa join, and she will be another of our panelists a little bit later. So just to frame up our goal for today, this is what we will be covering. We are assuming that many of you have already explored some of our EMP resources and productions online, I guess you could call them. This is really designed, today's session is really designed to answer some of the burning questions that we've been finding lots of schools have been sending us, and some of the things that people are wondering if they're thinking about jumping into the EMP. So some of the things you may have done already, or some of the things you might like to do after this webinar, check out the webinar with myself, David Morkunis and Toni Hatten-Roberts from about a year ago on unlocking the science of mathematics in the primary classroom. That is on the Think Forward Educators website. Really great one to check out. And that explains a little bit of the why behind EMP and kind of the design principles that we use to run the program. Exactly a week ago, many of you were probably there. We talked about key instructional routines in the primary classroom, which talked a little bit about what it takes in the classroom to make high quality instruction work, especially in line with the EMP. If you haven't seen kind of an overview of the program before, on our website under the programs page, you can see an introduction to the Explicit Mathematics program, which is an 18-minute video covering kind of the real basics of the program, what it entails, and so on. And if you want to really dive deep into what lesson design looks like, there's a podcast that I did with David Morkunis, which you can explore as well. So they're 4 resources, and if you haven't explored some of them already, they're a really great place to look. Again, we're not really looking at the theory of the EMP today. This is really those burning questions that we've found schools have for us. There is I've been told the chat is disabled, but what we do have is a Q&A. What you should be able to do with that Q&A is actually comment on other people's answers, if I set the settings up correctly, as well as upvote their questions as well. We'll probably punch through most of the content today and then return to questions later. But Toni, if you can see those questions, feel free to monitor and jump in at any point if you want to do that.
So,
In today's session, I'll take you through some nuts and bolts. We'll talk briefly about getting started with the EMP and making it work. Toni will then talk about catering to all students and adaptations of the program. I'll take us through some other important info. Then we'll actually hear from 3 different EMP schools. And we've already got Liam and Lisa here, which is fantastic. And we're going to close and talk about some upcoming opportunities with the EMP as well. So for nuts and bolts, I'm going to talk through these things. And we're going to start with what's included in the EMP and what should I order, which is a question that lots of schools often ask. So what's included in the EMP? You will need 1 teacher lesson book for each teacher. That is something that you can reuse multiple years. You'll need 1 assessment book for each year level. You can reuse that multiple years. You'll need 1 student book for each student, plus 1 for each teacher, because you as the teacher will be using that under a visualizer or a document camera demonstrating for your students. And schools have also found it's really helpful to purchase a few extras because, you have new students coming, some students might lose their book and so on. In addition to this, those things that you purchase, you will get as part of the program, as part of your purchase, access to all of our DRQTs, which stands for Daily Reviews and Quick Teach. They will live on our online portal, which you have access to. You'll also get training resources on that portal, which I'll talk about in more detail later, and also other resources and things that we update along the way. So for example, for every MSSP lesson or measurement space statistics and probability lesson, you will get some worksheets on that portal as well. The next question people often ask a fair bit is which year levels are available? So this is the roadmap of us working all the way up to year 6. And as you can see, this year we've had F1 and 2. Next year we'll have extended 3 and so on. So by 2029, you'll have all the year levels up to year 6. What that means and what schools, teachers and school leaders often ask is if my students start now, will they have EMP all the way through primary school? And the answer is yes, they will. So this is meant to say 2026, but 2026 next year, we will have these 4 levels. They will not be named Foundation Year 1, Year 2, Year 3. We'll actually call them level A, B, C, and D. And that's because schools find that they often want to start at a different point because of where their students are specifically at. So that's really helpful to have it named in that way. The other thing is, some people have asked, can we run the Year 3 program in Year 4? And the answer is most certainly you can. And if you want some more information about that, if you go onto our order page and then go down the bottom here, you will see it says, you won't be able to read this, but I'll read it for you. Due to the ambitious nature of our program, EMP Level D covers approximately 75% of the Year 4 curriculum. Full details and curriculum mapping for each year level are available here. And so if you click on that link, this will take you to this document. And if you're thinking about running our Level D program with your Year 4s, which is an option that lots of schools are pursuing next year, you can look at this and think about what you might need to top up to make sure you've covered all bases there. So the first 2 points. Next question is, when do we get the resources? So when you put in your EMP order, you will put in a specified delivery window. Basically, you tell us when at the start of the year is the first time one of your staff members will be in the office and will be able to receive a delivery. That is when you will receive your EMP printed resources. You will get access to the portal prior to then, though. In terms of pricing, some people say, how much does it cost? Can I get quotes? And so on. The easiest thing there is just to jump onto our website and go to the order page, put in the quantities you think you need, and then click checkout, and then you will just see the quote right there. If you need like a PDF quote to take to leadership or something like that, simply email support@EMP Schools, and Verity can provide you with a link that will auto-generate a PDF quote for you, which is really helpful. So that's nuts and bolts. Now we're going to talk a little bit about making the EMP work, and this is in relation to implementation. So in terms of making it work, people say, after I buy, what do I do? How do we make it happen? The first thing you do is you purchase EMP. When that happens, you'll get access to the online portal. And then at the start of next year, you'll run training via the online portal with staff on your student-free days just before the year starts. What that training will look like at this time, and it looked a little bit different this year, and I'll talk about that in a moment, but what that will look like is basically an online course that's designed for you to do together with your staff. And it will take about 2 hours. You can run it as 1 2-hour block or as 2 1-hour blocks, and there will be a video. The presenter will share with you key information, or presenter or presenters, key information about the Explicit Mathematics program. There will be pause points. There'll be check for understanding questions. There'll be time for you to look at scripts and practice, work with each other and get feedback. So it's a very, very interactive session. What we've done this year, if you're keen to get playing into that, if you're keen to get started a little bit early, you can use a 2025 implementation guide, which we can share with you upon request, which is very similar, but just the A version of what you'll be getting in 2026. That's again 2 to 2.5 hours of self-paced PD, which you can work through in your own time and will help you to really get a head start ahead of next year. Some schools have asked us about that, and that's definitely something that you can do. The other thing you can do is engage in some of our additional professional development, and I'll be talking about that in a little bit more in a moment as well. Okay, I'm now going to throw to Toni, who's going to talk about catering to all students.
Okay, so lots of questions that we get asked is, how does this work for composite classes? If you've got a foundation year 1 class together or 2 and 3 together, and what do we recommend? So ideally, we do recommend that you can do a streaming model if you have the resources available. So when we've got this, we're moving from this grade level, we're going to A, B, C, D. You really are putting the students where they need to be, or whether they need to be on A, B, C, D. And in next year's resource development, there'll be placement tests, so you can work out exactly where you need your kids to start from. Now, from a composite position, sometimes we don't always have those resources who can do that. So we do recommend that if you're a F1 classroom, then you could decide, hey, we're actually going to do the prep resources. I've got 12 preps and I've got 5 year 1s. We're going to do the prep program, the foundation program, the level A program, and it covers around about 70 to 80% of the year 1 curriculum, the way that it's incrementally taught. So there's only a small amount of information that you don't. However, if you are New South Wales, we definitely recommend that you do the year 1 program to meet all the content descriptors and outcomes that you would need to meet in New South Wales, given New South Wales is slightly higher than some of the other states. But ideally, streaming is probably the best way to accommodate your students to really target the teaching to where they're at. And many of the schools that I've worked with, they've got small pockets of students at a tier two, tier three level. And that's the next question. I'm going to skip down to the intervention. So where you have a group of students who really, they're in year two, but they're working at a foundation level or a year one level, and their needs are better met if you actually are small, pulling them out and using the level that they're meant to be on as an intervention. So you can use it as 2 to year three. So small group. In some schools, we've actually used it as a one-to-one program for children who are severely behind in the mathematics or may, have a disability of dyscalculia. And so one-to-one EMP works really, really well. We're often asked about extension. Already in the program, we have extension questions embedded in each lesson. So every practice page that the students are involved with, there'll be a level of extension questions every single day that students can do. But like any program, we're never going to be able to meet the vast range of extension that students could come to in a classroom. And the way the program has been laid out with the scope and sequence, there are opportunities for catch-up days, for top-up days. And we highly recommend that when you're doing those days, that if you've got students who actually need a really up-level extension that you would have done anyway, that's a perfect time to offer that extension to that student beyond the extra questions that we've put in the program. The last one there is,
I'll add something to that, Tony.
yes,
In chatting to a lot of schools, especially those in Queensland and South Australia, they ask about reporting requirements of kind of deeper or more investigative tasks and things like that. That catch up or top up time is the time that our SA and our Queensland schools have been using for that, and that's been working really well for them. Back to you, Tony.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ollie. So the last question is around, does the program use manipulatives? Absolutely, it does. We use developmental manipulatives that support the students' learning in their development of the concept. So we will use things like, we'll use dice, we will use counters, we'll use unifix blocks, so interlocking blocks, we'll use paddle pop sticks, so, bundles of and individual sticks. So we use lots of manipulatives that go along with the program. You're given a resource list at the beginning of each program to say exactly what you need to prepare. And I highly recommend that you actually make little, like snap lock bags of each individual student so they know what exactly that they need, that you've got your manipulatives ready to use, because we use those under the document camera. So being well prepared makes it so much easier to implement. In addition to that, all the MSSP lessons, so the measurement, space, statistics, and probability, you will need manipulatives to use those. So, and these are things that you would really regularly find in your resource, library or whatever we keep those math resources. So things like little mini clocks, things like rulers, tape measures. So all the things that you would normally use in a math classroom where for those lessons, but again, we'll give you a list of the things that you would need so you can prepare in advance. So beyond that, I'll often be asked, well, I've got some kids having difficulty with place value, of difficulty with these things, and can we use extra time for manipulatives? Well, that's exactly when you could do in your top up and catch up time again. You could double down on using those manipulatives. So something like the bundling sticks where we're regrouping to make 10, playing those games, repeating those games, throwing the dice first to 100, first to 50 is really perfect time to be using those extra manipulatives.
Fantastic. Well, adaptations, Tony.
Okay, so adaptations, I sort of touched on it just before. Coming into the new program next year, you will have placement tests so you can find the right starting point for for all your students. Ideally, we're a tier one program. That's what it's meant for. It's meant for whole class teaching, but there's always those pointy end kids, those tier three, tier two, who may not be able to suit that tier one teaching. So the best way to find out who that is to do our placement tests. It's also probably very valuable for schools who are taking on EMP new, and you've not done EMP in foundation, year one and year two, and you're about to start year three. So there will be a placement test so you can know exactly, hey, do my students have the prerequisites to do this program? And if not, you may need to go back and do the bridging courses that we've offered, but also you might decide, given the knowledge and the data that you have on your students, maybe your year three students are better placed doing year two. The next question is, will I be able to get through all content in a year? Absolutely. The program's been devised so that you can. We've allowed for those top-up, catch-up days, not just for you to consolidate or do extra manipulatives or double down on the concepts, but it's because we know the reality of a classroom. We're all teachers. Everyone involved in this program is a teacher, and we know what it's like when swimming turns up, when you're having a special occasion day, there's book week. All those things can throw a spanner in the works. So we haven't overloaded the program with 5 locked-in lessons a week. So it gives you that time. The final question is, can I skip lessons or parts of lessons or DRQTs? The biggest thing is to not skip lessons. The lessons are the explicit teaching, it's the concept teaching of any given topic. However, in each explicit lesson, there'll be a number built on that gradual release model. There'll be a number of practices that students can be involved with, and we've put extra practice in there. So it's the teacher's decision making and responsive teaching. So you can decide, hey, there might be 8 examples of practice. Do I need to do these 8? Or actually, given the data I've just seen on my students' whiteboards or the way that my students are responding, I really need to do 4 of these practices, and then I'm going to move on. So you have permission, and I'm going to say permission because you have permission to go off the script and go, I'm going to shorten the amount of practices. Again, in the DRQTs, which is what we call the daily review quick teachers, there'll be many, many slides for lots of opportunity to practice. But you might have a group of students, hey, but they don't need the 7 practices. They only need 3. So that's the decision making you'll make based on the data that you see when you're interacting with your students.
Right. Just there were a couple of questions from Petra and Shelley, which were similar, which were in relation to can I get my hands on the placement tests and know what they're about. 100%. You can actually just download them. If you jumped onto our order page, you would see right here placement assessments, assessment scripts, and spreadsheets for analyzing your data can be found here. So just if you go straight to that order page, right at the top of it, you will see that you're actually able to freely and straight away download those placement tests right away. Right, let's jump back to where we were. Okay, so thanks Tony for that overview. DRQT, Samantha, is daily review and quick teach. That's our quick way of referring to daily reviews.
Can I just add to that idea of this data review quick teach? So what we know is that our students need to do data review. It's part of the explicit teaching model. We know with spaced learning and interleave learning, we need to do lots of repetition and a data review. So ideally, it's a data review. What we mean by quick teach is there's quite a few concepts in mathematics that we haven't assumed thinking that the students already have this, but we know that our kids need more repetition. So it might not be ideally, sitting in a year 1 program, but we're going to do a quick teach. So just to recapture it with the students. And there's often concepts that are declarative knowledge. So they're not things that need a big explicit lesson that we can actually put straight into a data review, that if we do that repetition over time, then the students will actually pick those up.
Great, thanks, Tony. Heather's asked about whether there's tests throughout the year. Yeah, assessment is 100% part of the program. Assessments are built in both formative and summative. Formative assessments happen roughly every 3 weeks or so, and summative assessments are twice throughout the year, which are your assessments for reporting. And they will do a great job of showing you exactly where your students are at and their progress. For more detail on that, if you jump onto our programs page and scroll down to the 18-minute introduction video, you actually see me going through those assessments and I kind of talk through those spreadsheets. So that's a great place to go.
Okay, just a quick question from Kerry. If you're a new school and you're unable to give the placement test, I'm thinking you mean at the end of the year before you do your ordering, what if the book's ordered not right? So you end up with 20 year 3s, but they're actually sitting at year 1. I would actually think in the end, you're going to end up using those orders. And then if you were to discover that they needed year 1, it's not a lot of time between when you would get that. If you quickly at the beginning of the year, after that, you placed an order, you could do that.
Great. Kay Whittle has asked, does the program cover all New South Wales curriculum content? Yes, it does. It covers the curriculum content. We've mapped it to every curriculum across every state and territory that it's used in Australia, and it covers everyone based upon the year level that it's pitched at. And Jen asked, do you have to buy the student workbooks Yes, you do need to use the student workbooks. This is a question that lots of schools ask. 100% because they are the independent practice that reinforces the work from every single lesson. So they're absolutely imperative.
And if I can add to that, Jen, they've been written specifically to a gradual release model, as in the level of cognitive complexity of the question has been really thought about carefully. It isn't just, oh, I'm just going to give you heaps of practice. We've actually gone, actually, here's our level of practice for this question. We're now going to add an internal zero for this question. Like we've actually built it up in an atomization sequence. Like there is actually a lot of thought in the practice in the independent.
100%. Okay, some other important information. So, we just want to talk a little bit about the philosophy of the EMP and how we kind of approach development of the program and working with schools. It is an absolutely imperative part of our approach to always be talking with schools. I've had at least 30 conversations with schools who use EMP this year to just try to gain feedback from them and improve it. Um, One of the things that's come out of that is that with MSSP, we're going to make some changes for next year. We're going to integrate the measurement space, statistics, and probability strand into the daily reviews more comprehensively, and we're also going to be adding a little bit to those lessons to support schools. So that's one example of a change we're going to make. But this is just more broadly part of our philosophy, because we think that ultimately the people that this program needs to serve is teachers, school leaders, and their students. And the best way for us to find out that is to continue to speak with you. So you can always expect that level of responsiveness from us. This is something that we're announcing right now, but we also you'll be getting an email about it next year. EMP awards are something that we is a new initiative at the EMP. Obviously, if you're a new school, this isn't necessarily something you're going to be applying for in 2025. But just keep in mind that the awards are something to work towards in 2026 for those schools who are doing a great job of implementing EMP and also seeing great results. And there's lots of upcoming PD. So I talked previously about some of the PD. This is exactly what's coming up. We are hoping to add a couple more major cities and dates. But if you go, you can see down the bottom there, tickettailor.com/events / explicit mathematics program. Or if you just go straight onto our website and click on the PD button right at the top, you'll be able to see all of these and book in. They're specifically very low cost because the idea is that you've already made a big investment in the program. These events are purely to support you to actually have implementation success. Tracy says it would be great to have one in Adelaide. We hear you, Tracy. We are literally looking at dates right now, so we hope to be able to bring you one of them early next year. All right, let's hear from some EMP schools. We've got some wonderful teachers and leaders here who've been generous enough to donate some of their time tonight to share their experiences. These are three schools and three people in particular who've been doing a phenomenal job of the EMP. We're going to throw first to Anita Neeson. She's the Deputy Principal of the Peel Language Development School in WA. Today we have two state schools and one Catholic. We've got WA, Queensland, and Tasmania represented. And I spoke to Anita and her team probably about a month or a month and a half ago now, was extremely impressed with the way that they're rolling out EMP. And we've given Anita and the other panelists three questions today, if I can uncover them in my notes. We have asked them, why did you choose the EMP? What has been the impact of the EMP so far in your context? And what advice would you have to schools starting the EMP in 2026? Over to you, Anita.
Hi, Ollie. Can you hear me okay?
We got you loud and clear.
Great. So just want to give you a little bit of context about our school first. We have approximately 270 students from K to 3. We're a government-funded independent school. We have students who have a developmental language disorder. It's not associated with any other condition, and they have significant difficulties acquiring and using language. So our service spreads across 4 different sites in the Peel region, which is south of Perth, if anyone knows that area. At the end of year 3, all our students transition back to mainstream, not before. So our school mirrors mainstream school with the addition of specialised, highly qualified language intervention and education programs with a language focus, smaller class sizes, and basically we're classed as an early intervention. So why did we choose EMP? Well, data is always our first reference. it is always our reference for any change that happens in our school. So during a staff development day, we highlighted the fact that our maths data could improve. It was quite stagnant. Staff were willing to investigate this, and that's always one of the biggest challenges with any change, is having staff on board. So we collected feedback from our staff. Our staff in particular, we asked, like, what's working well, what could we do even better if? So they're the two main questions that our school focus our data around. With this information, we then formed like a maths collaboration group, and we used that collaboration group to then ask some questions about our maths data and what do we want and what do we need for our students in particular. So the feedback was that staff wanted consistency across classrooms and across the program. We wanted a program that was evidence-based with explicit lessons in particular. We wanted it to align with the WA curriculum. We wanted it to also align with Teaching for Impact and also share the values of Rose and Shine as well, because we knew these work for our students in particular. We already had an explicit program for synthetic phonics, so we know this works for our students, so we were looking for that in particular. Staff were familiar with the synthetic phonics explicit program, so we were happy to run with a program similar to this. So with that maths working group, we then investigated a lot of different programs. We looked at different programs, and together as a school, we decided that EMP was what we wanted to, was the best fit for our school. So we took this back to then the staff, and then with that staff, they all agreed to trial the program for 2025. So across our school, we decided that some of those trial conditions as well, so that we looked at. So moving on from that, what has been the impact? So far, since day one of term, we implemented it from pre-primary to year 2, and we rolled it out, and we're planning on rolling it out to year 3 next year as well. Whilst initially we had quite a few challenges to overcome, like any school and any change that happens, there's always challenges along the way. So some of them were like split classes, the fast-paced instructions, differentiation for some of our students as well. But all in all, we managed to overcome them together. So our data now has been a lot more targeted. We now have almost a new challenge, because we use what we call a traffic light system, where it's red, amber, green and blue. And we kind of keep that reference of blue being age appropriate, mainstream, so we know where our kids are moving back to as well. So within that, it is almost highlighted a new problem for us, because now we have a lot more students in the blue area. So we had students in the red before, which, you know, is always a big focus, but now looking at our data, we've got more knowledge, so we also have more students in that blue area, which is an absolute celebration for us. This program also highlighted, you know, lots of the summative assessments that we were completing, that, you know, how we're going to go with looking at that data in particular. So working in groups and teams has been really powerful for us, because having that data in front of us, looking what areas are our pre-primaries like missing, how can we catch that up, and working together as a team to do that, as a pre-primary team or a year 1 team, they've really worked well with that. So at the end of last term, we had another meeting collaboratively, and unanimously all our staff chose to continue this program. There wasn't a staff member that said, nah, I don't think it works. All of them said, yes, I want it for the next 4 years. So they all felt that, you know, students were progressing really well. The pace and the content is fabulous. The daily reviews are really good. So this is just some of their feedback. Great student practice. They love the workbooks. They're simple. There's no guff. They need to know, and that really helps for our students. They actually just need to know what they need to know. So those books are great. And even having the star questions at the end, they know they're a challenge. So some of them will give them a go, which is great to see. Staff have also said that daily reviews like reinforce previously taught content, which is essential with that cognitive load theory, which we find is essential for our students and all students, basically. The simple language that is used, teachers just talk too much sometimes, and, you know, having too much talking around, especially for students who, you know, acquiring language and using that language, that the less guff, the better. So having those scripts and having it very precise really, really assists our students. So I do have 2 stories to share. Just they're very quick. I'll try and be as quick as I can. One is
You've got heaps of time, Anita, so take your time.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Excellent. Okay. So one is a teacher that came to me, and so this is at the end of term 3. We had a meeting and we were chatting in this meeting, and I said, how are you going with it? What do you feel? And she said, look, when you first brought this out and you introduced the program, she said, I'm a good maths teacher. I know the curriculum. I'm good at teaching maths. My students do well. They generally perform really well. I can cater for all of them. I do a good job. She goes, but I'll give it a go anyway, because this is what we're doing as a whole school. I'll give it a go. And she said, guess what? I'm totally 100% converted. She said, what I thought I was good at, she goes, I've never covered the amount of curriculum that I have this year. She said, the concepts that we've taught, and I've never given them that many practice sessions. She said, I teach maths daily and I love it, and the kids are loving it too. She said, I look forward to the lessons. And the level, she said, I never ever thought to push them beyond where they were, because you almost get stuck in that year group. She goes, I teach that year, but I never necessarily look above in that other curriculum. And she says, I can see it in this. And they really, really loved also the fact that it's just repeated, like lots of things are repeated over and over and over again, which they just went, she goes, I'm totally converted. If our school doesn't do it, where can I buy the books myself? Because that's what I want to do. So that was a good story. The other one is a student in particular. So one of our students, this teacher has taught this student for 2 years. So this is the 2nd year they looped with them. She had her in pre-primary and now in year 1. The student was red zone across all areas. So really struggling, performing well below expected level across the school. The consistent structure and reoccurring themes in EMP have really assisted her with the cognitive load, and she's now able to focus on the core language that is needed to access that maths program. So the EMP has quickly become her favourite lesson of the day. She now in 1 semester moved from a red zone from us to a green zone for us. So not quite blue, but still green, which is massive. It's a huge achievement for her. So it's even better. She is so proud of herself. Like, she beams anytime she comes in the morning. What time is EMP? I can't wait. And she waits for the clock to get there. Even in the holidays just recently, she went home. We sent the semester 1 books home because they had finished them. And her mum said that she spent almost the holidays completing the pages she hadn't finished because she could access it. So, you know, absolutely beaming from ear to ear. She's just over the moon, and so are her parents, obviously, because she just loves and has such a great attitude towards maths. What advice would we give to schools starting EMP? Challenges will arise with any change, like reach out to other schools. I've reached out to a few schools and schools have reached out to us. It's really good to share. So, you know, definitely reaching out to others to solve solutions or work together. We have 2 lead teachers and myself driving the program, offering support, assistance. So no teacher feels like they're on their own, like we're all there together. And we're all learning together. So this is not something that I have been an expert in or anything else. So having that attitude of like, we're all here together, we're all doing it together, let's try together and let's work together. We also trained all our staff. So we trained teachers and EAs. So the teachers and the EAs can also support the program. So the EAs have a little bit more of an understanding about why the teacher might be teaching it a certain way, which may not align with their understanding of maths. So training everybody helps to assist in that section there. And lastly, we use collab time. So getting our teachers together once a term. How is it going? Asking those really essential questions like, what are you struggling with? Going over the 10 action steps. We've done that a lot with our staff, like going over them again. We even go in and, you know, model lessons for them to use those 10 action steps. So they're like, right, that's what I need to work on. Let's focus on that. Using that collab time and problem solving together is really our focus there. So yeah, if you can and you've got the funding to do that, yeah, definitely spend the time working together.
Thank you so
Any
much. Thank you so much, Anita. That's so powerful. Really appreciate that and hearing that story. It's not one you told me when we were chatting a couple of weeks ago, and it's really
No, it's only a new one. They're new
yeah,
ones. I've got
that's
plenty, yeah, but they were
yeah.
just two that I chose. Yeah.
Really, yeah, lovely for us to hear for the first time as well. Anita, just for listeners, for viewers, Anita mentioned the 10 action steps there. They're 10 action steps that we use in our PD, to kind of help you build up your skills around teaching AMP and teaching more broadly. Um, Thank you so much, Anita. We might pause there. If you've got questions for Anita, please throw them in the chat and we'll just work through Liam and then Lisa. Then we'll circle back to questions, both the ones that are in the chat and the ones for our particular panelists. But Anita, I can't thank you enough for that sharing. That was
No,
really fantastic. If you're happy to stay on to answer questions, that would be
absolutely.
marvelous as
Absolutely.
well. Great. Gonna hand over to Liam Ryan now. I might actually get Toni to introduce Liam because Toni has worked really closely with St. Anthony's over the last couple of years.
Yeah, so I would like to welcome Liam and thank him so much for joining us tonight. Liam's from St. Anthony's. He's from Launceston, Tasmania. So I know him, one of the questions was, hey, can we get some training in Tasmania? There are definitely schools down there that are doing it and doing it fantastically. And Liam is a teacher who is doing it very well. But Liam is also an instructional coach. So Liam helps other teachers with implementing the programs at the school. So thank you so much, Liam, and I'll throw over to you.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, the first question there, why did we choose EMP? Well, yeah, my senior school leaders, Jason Perry and Emma Marshall, had heard about the program and had spoken with some other schools that were using EMP in the trial. And for us at St Anthony's, we have a heavy focus on literacy. So we noticed that we needed to boost some instruction and content in numeracy. So yeah, Jason and Emma spoke with Toni and we decided to try EMP, and mainly because we wanted to lift our maths results and really strengthen those foundational number skills. So we'd had a lot of success with Initial Lit in our school and the intervention programs in literacy. But yeah, we noticed that we needed to, there was still some areas and still students falling behind and having gaps in maths. So that was mainly why. The impact of EMP, yeah, we've been doing EMP in prep, grade 1 and grade 2 this year. And yeah, it's been fantastic across all our classes. We're only a small school, so we only have one class in each grade. But yeah, it's really boosted the confidence of our teachers and particularly for myself and um, in how we teach maths and how we can help every student succeed. The results have been really strong. In my class, I'd probably say about 95% of students are really achieving 80% or above in their formative assessments, which yeah, we tend to get to every sort of 3 to 5 weeks, just depending with obviously interruptions and whatnot. But yeah, obviously 80% is that key number. But yeah, it's been fantastic and it has been great to see that it's really, like I've noticed, it's really closed the gap. Not just in my class, but I get to go and watch some of the other teachers work across all of those classes. And we like every other school have students with differing abilities and learning disabilities. So it has been amazing. And yeah, the students are certainly more independent. And I find as well as a classroom teacher, I'm spending less time working one-to-one with kids. Of course, you always need to work with your focus students where you need to, but certainly I'm not having to spend as much time working one-to-one because when we get to that UDO section in the books, the workbooks that you were talking about earlier, they're pretty confident to go on with the rest of the task. So yeah, I certainly have a lot more students now that love maths and a lot more confident with it. And I'm often hearing, oh, it's okay, I know how to do this sort of thing, that comment. So And yeah, we're going to have a go at the year 3 program next year. But we have sort of composite classes in 2, 3, 4, 2, 5, 6 classes. So we'll have a go at sort of intertwining that, but in 3 to 4 next year. What advice for schools starting next year? I'd definitely say um, make sure that your teachers are familiar with explicit direct instruction and that classrooms are set up for whole class teaching, because that's really important. That's a big step that we took at St Anthony's. And yeah, I think it's good for teachers to know as well that there's still room for creativity, especially in those MSSP lessons. And I quite enjoy being able to, even though you still get that script of a lesson, it still tells you what you need to do. I love sort of putting PowerPoints together, and sometimes I won't use PowerPoints, but um, being able to still have that your own input as a teacher is really important. And probably the other thing is just to make sure, it was mentioned earlier, but get your resources ready early, as well as your concrete materials, that list that you're given at the start of the year. And the other big thing that that is really important that use a lot of is the document cameras per class. So I know that you spoke to me us about that at the end of last year, Tony, but that's also really important as well.
Thank you so much, Liam. That was fantastic, and I think the perspective of the instructional coach is really helpful, and the teacher living and breathing the program, and your tips there are really like just practical nuts and bolts. How do you make it work in your own individual classroom, which I think is a fantastic complement to the sharings from Manish previously. We do have some questions, but again, we'll move on to Elise, and then we'll circle back to those questions. Delighted to introduce Elisa Hurd, Head of Department Curriculum Focus at Windsor State School in Queensland. I've known Lisa for a long time now. I think she came down to one of the initial Step Lab trainings down in Melbourne a few years ago, and I've seen her at a couple of trainings since. And we ran our PD up in Queensland at Windsor earlier this year. Time really flies. And Windsor is actually becoming the first not Step Lab, EMP, Explicit Mathematics Program, hub school, which is very exciting. And I'll be talking about that in a moment. But yeah, this is because they've been doing such a great job implementing the program, and they are really enthusiastic about it and seeing great results. So really keen to hear from Lisa about that story now.
Thanks, Ollie. Yep, so I'm the head of curriculum at the school, and we probably came at it from a bit of a different angle. We, similar to the others, had the focus on English a lot. That's if there was a problem of practice. We're kind of a high ICSEA school, so a lot of people would like to have our problems, but we still have a number of students who don't gain mastery in English and or maths. So we've had a big focus on that. We just moved to version 9 this year. The Queensland implementation is quite staggered. And so we put a really heavy focus on in our school and with our staff creating the English units and right down to lessons. So we sort of created our own set of resources, I guess, to align with our science of learning journey over the years. We introduced Sounds Right a number of years ago now, and we really like the staggered approach of having it go through sort of one grade at a time. The P2 has been great for EMP, but yeah, in that sense. So we were really looking to find a program in mathematics that would reduce teacher workload of kind of putting it together. All of energy was put into those English units that hit all the markers that we were really keen to have. And I'd sort of touched base with a few schools that I'd followed through the science of reading journey and put a bit of a call out on Think Forward educators. And we sort of were going down the route of another pathway because EMP hadn't come across our radar yet. And just in the nick of time, it came out and it just hit every single marker, as I knew it would when it was Ollie and Dave and Toni, and I was familiar with all their work. So I just thought this was the dream. I manifested it, I think, Ollie.
Good.
So I did this same webinar last year to just sort of get the insight in it, and then we went from there, sort of took it to schools, the teachers, and they wanted to do it. I guess the key points that we're really, really happy with that it had, that no other program has, and this is so, I was just thinking actually off off topic a little bit, but Jason Clare's announcement over the weekend about looking a review into the Prep to 2 curriculum, Ollie, he just needs EMP. That's all he needs. It's just EMP. So if you could just get that sorted, save him a lot of time. Yeah, the daily reviews, and it was a little bit, initially that was a little bit of a struggle without, not a struggle at all, but our teachers, we've been playing in the space of the OCA reviews and trying to weave that into our existing lessons that we had previously. And that was a bit hit and miss. Teachers were having to spend a lot of time actually trying to marry them up. So, but they're quite short. So this was really getting used to the daily review is a really big component. And once you see that, you see why. That's where all that repetition comes in. And, I know I've seen Dave before with his incredible spreadsheeting and getting on that forgetting curve and everything very explicitly. So fantastic. The explicit instruction, obviously, and all the cognitive load theory, that's been a big topic in our school, having been taken care of in the PowerPoints. There's minimal fuss. Textbook, it's been impossible to find a textbook for students. We went away from them years ago just because they are so busy, and this is just perfect. And the kids, because we haven't had a textbook in a long time, they love their little books. They're absolutely so proud of their resource books. So yes, you absolutely purchase the resource books. It's part of our resource scheme. So the kids are essentially paying for it in their book list for us anyway. The high level of repetition and practice, I think without something like a program, often teachers are afraid to do that much repetition. Choral chanting and the practice time is often what gets left out of a lot of lessons anyway. So that's brilliant. And as I said, the no fuss text and the package of resources, amazing. Especially now you've gone to the OneDrive, because in Queensland we can't access Google, but that was a whole other thing. And also it was funny, you did a webinar earlier in the year, and I know someone sort of said, oh, when's it going to be finished? Why do you keep making changes? And I love that. That's what we love about it, because you will listen to the feedback and then you're constantly updating it. And if we've got to buy new handbooks every year, it's worth it. It's I really like that. So our impact is phenomenal, the mastery of the students, and to the point that, of course, there's only that one sort of summative assessment that we gauge. We love that because we're really thinking of going to that for the mastery. It's sort of, even the other program we're using, it has a mastery cell, but it's still assessing quite often. So that was really great. But we essentially preps, we had no students below the C level, except for 3 very high needs students. So we've never had that before. The 100% the teachers are on board now. We've done a similar thing to Anita, that we had a review and got their feedback, and absolutely they love EMP. Our next steps are probably kind of some kind of coaching and fidelity around that, just to ensure the consistency, even though there's a script. We tried the visualizers. We kind of had always used iPads and whatnot, but we'll definitely be getting more of those for next year. The teachers who have been trying them really love them. It's so engaging. I know, it's always the way people will see direct instruction and think that it's not, and it's boring, it's rote. They're just constantly doing something. So I've got a couple of stories too now that Anita got away with some stories. I went into a year 1 class the other day to do a coaching video, and there's a few high flyers in there, busy children, a lot of rocking on chairs and whatnot, but they were constantly doing the work, so they could sort of do that fidgeting and what they would normally do, a little bit of intention, but they were just busy. They're looking, they're chanting, then they're down and they're doing some work, then they're in their books. It's just, they're always doing something. So it's highly engaging in that way. We use it for intervention, starting to do that as well, just that repetition. And that's where we might use more concrete materials. I wanted to sort of say, Toni, I know when you came up for the workshop, one of our teachers actually said, I think, why don't we use more concrete materials? And you sort of responded with, are they getting it without it? Yes. And that's, what you have is really all you need. I think it can be tricky in the early years. A lot of the teachers kind of have the expectation that children need lots of things to play with and they need to move things all the time. And it's proof that they just don't. They just need really simple things. They don't need to have an animal figurine just to counter. That sort of thing was really powerful for them to hear as well. We have a composite. So I hadn't actually mentioned it when it came up earlier. I thought I'd mention that. It's a prep one, so foundation one, and it was a bit challenging in the beginning. We kind of just devoted a fair bit of teacher aid time, and he was able to sort of teach us both. So he probably takes a little bit longer than other classes to get through what he has, but he uses the MSSP time with a teacher aid where he can kind of focus on others. So it does, we have managed to work that out. And as for the extension, because even we have a lot of higher kids, so our teachers sort of said early on, the content is so rigorous that the higher kids love it. You know, they're in grade 1 right now doing subtraction with regrouping. They love it. They love the fluency, all that sort of thing. So it's extension in that sense. They're really challenged. Really good parent feedback, seeing what their kids can do. I think with maths, they've been a bit awash in the sea of the last number of years where they come home with these strategies like, what are they doing? Why are they doing this? So I think they're happy to see it back to normal. My advice, probably the beginning of the year, definitely the resources. I found I could do that at the beginning and they didn't need them straight away. So I had a few weeks to get that sorted. We probably aren't going to start with the rest week or the settling in week next year. They'll just get straight into it like we do with Sounds Right, because it sets the routines up for the class as well, particularly in those early years. So they just love that. They use the gestures for other aspects of their teaching as well. So straight into it, because I will say if the one thing is that they feel like they're not getting through everything, it's a lot, but that's got to be probably a bit down to our timetabling potentially. Definitely put the effort into that training at the beginning. We didn't devote enough time to it at the beginning, and we thought that we could kind of pick it up in following sort of staff meetings. They need it straight away. They need all of it just to help build their confidence, and then really be ready to reassure them that they can take their time and that they won't be fluent at the beginning, and the kids may look a little bit disengaged, particularly if you're not already at sort of explicit direct instruction school or science of learning school. Yeah, just make them feel very comfortable about that. And possibly that's where if you can connect with other schools and see what it might look like down the track. What else did I have for? I was just going to mention that I think if you haven't got something scripted like this, or done a lot of PD on cognitive load theory with your staff, I'd be getting onto that a little bit so they understand the why behind a lot of it. Hopefully most people have come to this here, but if not, really look into that and try and do a bit of PD around that at the same time. Portal is amazing. Really, that was an update. That's really good. And the other little story I was just going to say was a year 2 teacher. She was teaching regrouping with subtraction 2-digit. And she came to me at the end of the week to say, I just want to let you know, I was very disheartened in my first lesson. And if it hadn't been that it was in the program, I would have just said, this is just too hard. They were really struggling. It was a real punish. And she said, I felt so mean. By the time she'd then had the MSSP lesson and they came back to the consolidation, and like 98% of the kids got it. So she would have sort of given up, said, ridiculous, they can't do this. And just by that sort of end of that next lesson, they all had it. So tell them to trust the process is what I would say. Yeah, I think that's all.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That's incredibly powerful. And if people want to see some of this in action and you happen to be close enough or willing to travel, we've got our first EMP School Open Day at Windsor State School. That's on the 3rd of November. I think we've only got 20 spots available there. So get in quick. If you click on PD from the EMP site right now, you can, who knows, it might be booked up by the end of this webinar. We'll see. But that's a really great chance to see EMP in action and get started. I also wanted to emphasize something that both Lisa and Anita said there, which was expecting it to be challenging, expecting it to be a little bit hard at the start of the year. We had so many emails, messages from schools saying this is really hard, the teachers are finding it hard, the students are finding it hard, the lessons are long, the daily reviews are long. It takes time. It's a big change to move into the EMP. It's a really high expectations program, and both for students and teachers, it takes time for the stamina to build up. So I think what Lisa said there about trust the program, we've got we're so lucky to have these three people share with us today these stories. But like I said, I've spoken to over 30 schools. Every school I've spoken to has similarly enthusiastic stories, but also similar stories about how hard it was at the start, but by the end of term three, how much their teachers were loving it. I had one principal tell me that all of her teachers bailed her up and said, if you don't buy EMP for next year, we're all leaving. So that's similar to what the story that Anita shared earlier as well. So please trust the program. Please expect that to be the trajectory for it to be challenging at the start. Just because we are lucky to have our three guests here, we might throw the questions directly directed to them, and anything we don't have time to get to in the next 4 minutes or so of this webinar, we'll answer via email and following. So there was one specifically for Liam. This is from Laura. Liam, as a fellow instructional coach, I'd love to hear more about how you're assisting in the rollout of EMP in your school.
Yeah, well, as I said at the start, I suppose that decision was probably made a little bit more by the senior school leaders, but at the same time, like last year I was teaching 3, 4 actually, and I went down to year 2, and when this was offered, and I knew that Ollie and Toni were involved in it, particularly Toni because she visits our school. Yeah, I was pretty keen to teach it because. Yeah, it is a fantastic program, and all of those things mentioned before the EDI, we've been doing that at our school, so I felt reasonably confident starting off with it. And yeah, with our scores in my class, I think all classes had to do a bridging course, which probably showed that we needed to we knew that our kids needed some extra support with our maths. Um, so yeah, we've done that, and we're catching up our way throughout the year in the program. But as I said, the kids have really loved it, and across our classes, and being able to go in to the other classrooms and with my doing some instructional coaching, I've been able to help the other teachers as well. And yeah, certainly a lot of our classrooms, because like what you were saying early, Ollie, that it is really, it takes a little bit of stamina to get used to, and Toni knows that because she's watched me teach and coached me. But yeah, you need to work into it, and the lessons can be a little bit challenging at the start, but it's like with anything. Once the kids get used to it and you get used to it, you'll start to see the results. And once you start to see the results, there's no turning back.
So if I can just help out Liam there a little bit. So what they do an instructional coaching model. They also use Step Lab, but because we support schools with those 10 action steps that we do in the intensives that Ollie and I and instructors do, we've got a bit of a form that Liam can use when he goes and coaches his prep teacher, foundation teacher, and his year 1 teacher, that he sort of knows what he's looking for and can support the teachers in those effective teaching strategies. And Liam's very good at his delivery. He built up stamina very quickly. And that supports it. But it does take time to build stamina for the teacher and stamina for the kids.
Great. We would love some people have asked for links to that upcoming PD and things like that. If you please would fill out this feedback form, that would be fantastic. We've got your email, and that will enable us to send some links to you. We also love to know how it went. We are at a time. We have a record of all the questions, so we will be diligently working to answer these. If you have any questions that come up after this webinar, please just email support@empschools.com, and we will definitely get back to you, or just use the contact page on our website. I cannot thank our guests enough today. Anita, Neeson, Liam, Ryan, and Lisa Hurd. You've all been absolutely fantastic, really generous with your time. And just thank you for being such phenomenal models of quality practice and quality implementation of EMP. And thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you to everyone for coming today. And please be in touch if you have any further questions following this evening. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, Anita. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Ryan. Liam.
Thanks, Liam. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Anita.
Thanks, everybody.